Hey folks, I am Kevin Iole, and everything is bigger and better in Texas, and you will see that on UFC 262 in Houston, Texas. The main event is going to be a lightweight title fight, the vacant lightweight title fight between Charles Oliveira and my next guest, Michael Chandler. Mike, it's tax day that day, so we better get everybody out early to get their taxes filed so that they can see you and Charles Oliveira get it on.
Oh, just file for an extension, man. We got to fight to win.
That extension or get out early, one of the two. So
yeah.
You are fighting Charles Oliveira for the vacant title. So I came up with a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you about your career and about Charles's career before we get into a little pop quiz here. Since you are a very prominent fighter, former Bellator champion, looking to become, I think you're going to be, how many former Bellator champions became UFC champions?
Just one, I believe.
Okay.
Just Eddie.
Yeah, so you're looking to become the second. So that's not one of the quiz questions here.
Oh man, come on! I'm 1-0 right
You got
now.
one right, so I'm not counting that one. All right. So let's start this in the UFC pound rankings, the current UFC lightweight rankings. How many of the lightweight fighters, they rank 15? How many of them have held at least a UFC interim championship, if not the full title? So there's 15 fighters ranked.
2, Conor and Poirier.
Okay, you got 2 of them, but you missed 3. Justin Gaethje, Tony
I forgot about that.
and Rafael Dos Anjos. So 5 of the 15, and the winner of your fight will be 6.
Wait a second. So Ferguson's still in the pound for pound list?
He's not in pound for pound in the lightweight rankings.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you meant pound for pound. See, I would have got that one right.
Okay, so you would have got okay. Now, here's one maybe not such a good memory. You're a winner throughout most of your career, but what UFC ranked lightweight eliminated you from the 2009 NCAA tournament?
Gregor Gillespie.
Okay, I figured you would get that one. You're never going to forget
Gregor
that
Gillespie. I'll never forget that. I got a bone to pick with him.
So you may get a chance to see him down the road. Let's see. What Bellator champion has Charles Oliveira previously beaten?
It would have to be. Dang.
You want me to get?
Really?
He has a 3-letter nickname.
Dang. I don't know. Well, hold on. So 130. 130. Oh, I thought you meant current. I'm sorry.
No, not current. I'm sorry. Okay, so I should have clarified.
Yep. I remember that. Yep. Yeah, that was Will Brooks' second fight in the UFC. I take a lot of flack because Will didn't do good in the UFC. So.
Yeah, no, I know you did. We've talked about that. And I'll throw this last one at you then. So he wasn't a UFC fighter at the time. He became subsequent. But who was the first future UFC fighter that you beat in your career?
The first one was Eddie Alvarez.
No, the first one was Marcin Held. Marcin Held would end up going on to go into UFC. So you beat him in the 5th fight at Bellator 36.
I suck at my own history, huh?
That's the ones you missed. That's Mike Chandler questions.
The funny thing is, I probably know more about the other ins and outs of the industry more than I do my own career because I don't really think about it because it's my own career.
Well, when we talk about it, here's one that I am sure most people aren't going to know. I mentioned to Charles the other day. He didn't know it. He has 19 submissions in his career, and this is going to be the challenge for you to avoid getting submitted by a guy like that who has so many. But he has 8 different submissions. What's the challenge that, this guy is not like, hey, he's got the rear naked choke or the guillotine. I mean, he goes across the spectrum, 6 rear naked chokes, 4 guillotine chokes, 4 anaconda chokes. And then he had one each of an arm bar, a knee bar, a triangle choke, a calf slicer, and an inverted triangle / arm bar. I mean, that's a pretty incredible. What is the big challenge when you have a guy that has that kind of diverse submission game?
You just have to be ready for anything. As you alluded to, most of the time when you're fighting a guy who has, say a great knockout power, you got to watch out for his right hand, or you got to watch out for his left hook, or you got to watch out for his really great guillotine on the ground or his really great knee bar. But as you said, Charles Oliveira knows how to finish you. in any aspect of the grappling department. So for me, I've worked a lot on it. I'm notorious for being able to have a sixth sense inside those grappling exchanges, mainly because of my wrestling background and now in the sport of mixed martial arts, keeping my limbs short, keeping my neck tucked, and staying explosive and athletic in those positions. Seeing the submission being set up one or two moves and movements before they actually happen. Similar fight for me was a guy named Goiti Yamauchi, who had 22 wins, 19 by submission. Very well versed on his back, very well versed if he took your back. And the majority of that fight, I was on top of him, beating him up, thwarting every single submission that he threw up. And he paid a big price because of it. I'm not saying that's what's going to happen in the Charles Oliveira fight,
Right.
but if we do go to the ground, I believe my superior grappling and grappling positioning will thwart all of his submission offense.
From your standpoint, Mike, people think of you as a wrestler, but you have more knockouts than you have submissions. Is that because, people are so concerned about your wrestling that it sets up your striking? Or do you think your striking has advanced to the point where, it's something that in and of itself, forgetting the wrestling, that guys have to take seriously?
I will concede, yes. I think when people fight me, A, my stance is very low. B, I'm constantly in your face and I'm constantly level changing. And as you saw in the Dan Hooker fight, it was the faking of the shot. It was the body shot that eventually set up the left hook. But yes, I think my striking has been ever improving. I think I have worked a ton on gaining explosiveness and power in my punches, but you also can't discredit God's given abilities. Right. I think he gave me dynamite in my hands. I didn't know it because I'd never been in a fight until I started fighting when I was 22 years old. But turns out I got some dynamite in my hands. I can finish you with my right hand. I can finish you with my left hand. Either way, if I touch you, I believe I can put your lights out. So keep mixing it up. Go to the head, go to the body, touch the legs, and look for that off button.
You've been long one of the best lightweights in the world, but I think, you get this title fight as much not for the knockout of Dan Hooker, but for kind of what you did afterwards, right? I mean, well, even what you did before, being the backup for the Khabib fight, you were saying yes to everything they asked you. And that goes a long way with Dana White. When you were willing to take on anybody at any time, that goes a long way with him. But your performance in the cage afterwards, the Ric Flair thing, you were great on the mic and all that. And it was almost like when they looked at, okay, Khabib retires, we're accepting his retirement, we need an opponent, we need two guys here. You made a name for yourself that night. I mean, did you know, doing that, hey, you had won over the crowd and kind of got the audience on your side?
No, I didn't know, but I knew I wanted to mention three names: Conor, Poirier, and Khabib. Conor and Poirier, because they were on the same card as me, and they were also, top three guys in the world. And then Khabib was, dancing around retirement, had already made his decision that he was going to retire, but he hadn't officially retired yet. I did believe, and still do believe, that I would make him 29 in Chandler. But if he ever did come back, but obviously he has moved on, and that is great for me because now I get the opportunity to fight for the UFC title. But I think I just wanted to make people feel something. I think I wanted to not just come to the party. I wanted to kick down the door and throw a couple dance moves in there and have everybody think, man, that guy right there, that guy's got something. Right. Let me do a little bit of research. Okay, wow, he does have 20-something fights. He was a 3-time champion outside of the organization. He has been a perennial top 10 guy, top 15 guy in a lot of people's eyes, and mainly he was that low ranked because I was outside of the UFC. So I just wanted to make people feel something. I wanted to introduce myself to a whole new fan base that is 10 times bigger than the one that I've been exposed to over the last decade and a half. Right. And it worked out extremely well. When I got the phone call for the UFC title shot, I was absolutely excited, a little bit confused, but I wasn't gonna argue with him. I said, okay, yes, the answer is yes. Once again, Michael says yes, and we're gonna go fight for the title May 15th.
When they asked you, do you want to fight for the title, did they say, hey, do you want to fight against Charles Oliveira? Or did they just say, hey, do you want to fight for the title? Because I'm wondering if you were able to guess who they were going to offer you.
Well, I mean, at that point, I knew it had to. When the phone call came in and Hunter Campbell said, hey, what do you think about fighting for the vacant lightweight title? If time would have stopped right there, I would have said, okay, the next name out of his mouth is either going to be Justin Gaethje or Charles Oliveira. Turns out it was Charles Oliveira. I said yes before he even finished the on Charles Oliveira, And, I said, thank you so much for the opportunity. We hung up. I kissed my wife, threw everything in my car the next day, drove down to Florida, and here I am. I've been here training now for 7 weeks. But yeah, it was definitely a surprise. There was the date, May 15th, was something we were interested in. It was something that we were looking at. We weren't sure if it was going to be Gaethje, wasn't sure if it was going to be Oliveira. Definitely didn't even think that it was going to be for the title. And then all of a sudden it became the title and Charles Oliveira. And I said yes, and here we are.
When they accepted Khabib's retirement, I guess Dana did. Everybody else accepted it, and it took Dana to accept it. And they named the fight. I thought, okay, the likelihood was they were just going to say, okay, Conor versus Dustin, the trilogy fight be for the championship. When that wasn't what it was, that it was kind of a surprise to me. And I was surprised that you didn't mention either of those two in your group there. And do you feel like a need to fight if you win your championship, fight the winner of that fight in your first title defense? A former 2-division champion in Conor, and Dustin, who had the interim belt and has obviously been one of the elite guys in the world for a while.
Yeah, I wouldn't phrase it as I feel the need to, but I think that just makes the most sense. There's no doubt Dustin Poirier is the number one guy. His resume, who he has beaten, beating Conor, but obviously he chose to take the trilogy fight, and more power to him. That was a decision that he made. So I think the winner of the July 10th card, whether it be Conor, whether it be Poirier, that'll be my first title defense when I go through Charles Oliveira May 15th. And hopefully sometime before the end of the year, because I want to defend the strap often.
Mike, I wonder, boxing guys, they take, not everybody does, but you have a lot of guys that take, even Canelo he just fought Yildirim. Now he's coming back and fighting Bellator Joe Saunders, and you get kind of a softer touch fight type thing. And MMA, especially in the highest levels, the UFC like you're at right now, you don't get that. And the wear and tear on your body, I wonder, like, how do you guarantee you're at your best when you're going out there each time out against these guys that are so tough that it requires not only you to kill yourself in the fight, but in the gym before you get there?
I think the biggest thing is I never take time off. I think a lot of people think that you need time off, you need rest and recovery. Now, granted, when I say take time off, I don't mean I'm sparring 365 days a year. I'm not taking damage. I'm not putting myself in those dog fights and in those tough fight scenarios in the gym. But when it comes to strength and conditioning, when it comes to cardio, when it comes to mobility, I have a massage therapist and a body worker every single week that works on me. I'm on my so right, my so back, my so neck, my roller, my infrared sauna, all of that stuff day in and day out. I eat not perfectly outside of camp, but outside of camp, I'm still eating very clean. I'm supplementing perfectly, or at least I believe I'm supplementing perfectly. I'm drinking tons of water. If you want to get the most out of your body, you have to give it the fuel that it needs. You have to give it the things that it needs. And those recovery things and making those decisions to never take the time off, because, Kevin, I just turned 35 years old. I don't know if a lot of people know that, because I just came to the UFC. So people think, oh, I must be some young, hungry guy. I just turned 35 years old. I don't feel a day over 25. And I don't think we get old. I think we get busy and we get lazy. What do most 35-year-olds have? They have a wife. They have a couple kids. They have a lot of stuff on their plate. So they decide, hey, this stuff I have to do. So I won't do my training. I won't be disciplined in my nutrition. I won't be disciplined in my supplementation. I'll slack in these areas so I can be a dad and a businessman and a husband and all of these other things. Now, I love my wife and son more than anything on this entire planet. I love them more than I love mixed martial arts. But mixed martial arts is the means by which I provide for them and the means by which I can make the biggest impact in the world. So I don't take a lot of time off between training camps. I'm always in shape. And that's not because I might get a short notice fight. That's because I believe I don't want my body to start tightening up. And as I said, I don't think we get old. I think we get busy and we get lazy. So I try not to be too busy, try not to be too lazy. And that's why I'm 35 years old, feeling in the best shape of my life.
Well, I've been very busy, believe me, very busy. Let me ask you this. You mentioned 35, and so it's funny that you said that, because my next question was to ask you about your age. You, given the way you take care of your body, you could fight for a lot longer than maybe the average guy does. And there's fighters getting into their 40s to fight now. It's still not as common as, in the mid 30s, but you could go that far. do you want to put your family through that, I guess, is the question. Like, how long do you want to do it knowing the toll it takes on your wife and with you being away and on your kid, you just losing the opportunity to see your kid grow up every day.
Yeah, I mean, that's really the toughest part of it. It's the aspect of the fight game. It's the only aspect that I would change, truthfully, but it's also a decision that we make, just
Right.
A little insight into our lives. My wife is a career woman. She is a doctor. She works full time. She loves her job. She draws her significance and what she brings to this world through her work and through her service to her clients and to her patients. So the last thing that I would ever do is say, hey, honey, I'm the breadwinner. You need to come down to Florida. You need to sit here in this house with me and go to practice with me and give up your dreams, give up your goals and all of the schooling. My wife went to school for dang near 20 years to get to where she is in her career. So the last thing that I should do, I mean, number one, happy wife, happy life. Last thing I want to do is tell her what to do. Number one, she's a strong woman, and I love that about her. Number two, I don't want to rob her of the gifts that God gave her. And so the hardest part really is my son, but we find times to make it work. Luckily, he's not in real school yet. He's not in kindergarten where he actually has to be there. So he was just here for a couple of days, spending time with me, bring our nanny down, and she takes care of him while I'm training and stuff, and I'm hanging out with him the rest of the day. So we're making it work. We're figuring it out. And this is absolutely a life that we chose. Yeah. This life could look a lot differently. She could give up on my wife could give up on her dreams and give up on her career and come down here and just be my wife and take care of me. But I don't want that for her, and she doesn't want that for herself either. So It's a decision that we made. And man, year after year goes by, and we just had a conversation last night about, this and, a fight career and some other things. There's always just big, life-altering, expensive decisions that we need to make. And we are two high-functioning, hard-charging individuals that have to make tough decisions almost every single day. So in a weird way, we love the chaos. In a weird way, it's become second nature to us because I believe God has a calling on both of our lives to do some amazing things. And without this crazy drive that we have, we can't make the impact that we want to make.
It's interesting, you say that because, Robert Whitaker declined a title shot, right? And I have Rob Whitaker in my pound for pound top 10. I think he's a fantastic fighter, deserved the rematch with Israel Adesanya. They offered it to him for June, and he decides because of family reasons he was away, he couldn't do it again. And a lot of fans criticize him. And I imagine as a peer, right, you can understand that decision, maybe a decision you would make differently. But you could probably understand that more than most people, like what he was going through, I would think.
Yeah, so it sounds like he declined it because he wanted to go spend time with his family.
Yeah, he said he wanted to fight in September. They offered him in June, so he said, I have to be with my family.
Yeah, and truthfully, I mean, I've taken some flack because there's a lot of people out there, or a decent amount of people that I've seen at least, who said I turned down a fight against Tony Ferguson. And the way that the timeline was I made weight October 24th. I was the backup for October 24th. And the next move was, hey, okay, let's fight Tony Ferguson January 23rd instead of, it ended up being Dan Hooker, but I wanted to fight him January 23rd because I wanted to go give my time to my family, go serve my wife, take her on dates. I wasn't trying to go get fat and happy and go party. I wanted to go spend time with my family. So if you take yourself back all the way to March of 2020, when I started training camp for my June fight against Benson Henderson, that eventually got pushed all the way back to August because of the COVID thing. Then I had 2 or 3 weeks off after that fight, then signed with the UFC, then took the short notice 6-week opportunity to fight October 24th. I was in training camp away from my family down here in Florida. Now, once again, I preface this with, this was a decision that I made, but I was in camp from March to the end of October. So the last thing I was going to do is say, hey, babe, I got to go fight December 18th because that's when Tony wanted to fight me, December 18th. And he was adamant he wanted to fight December 18th. So I would have to go right back down to Florida with 0 days off, keep beating down my body. You talk about beating down your body.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. Yes, I try to do everything right. I try to do all the things, mitigate all the risks of beating down your body and being injury prone. But the worst thing you could do is be in training camp for 9-10 straight months. Your body just won't handle it. So therefore, I wanted to go home for 4 weeks. I said, Dana, I just need 4 weeks. Give me 4 weeks to go home, serve my family, get back to neutral, cool the jets, and then fight me January 23rd, whoever says yes. Lo and behold, I'm fighting Charles Oliveira now because he beat Tony Ferguson December 18th. So in hindsight, it was probably a bad thing for Tony to fight that fight, but it all worked out the way it worked out. It's all working in my favor. And May 15th, we go win that title.
Two more questions and I'll let you get out of here. One thing I am curious about is, the last time everybody was asking you a lot about, what is it like to be finally in the UFC? That you went through the experience, like what is different about fighting at the UFC and what comes with the UFC as it was, you're fighting in Bellator that had been on major network television and been around a long time. What did you find the difference between the two organizations to be?
Things are just a lot bigger in the UFC, there's a lot more media, there's a lot more eyeballs, and the UFC staff is about 100 times bigger. The UFC staff has hundreds of people in those blue Fight Week UFC shirts with lanyards, high functioning individuals who are just getting after it 24/7 around the clock. Abu Dhabi was an interesting time zones stuff going on. So you could be down in the lobby at 3 a.m. or you could be there at 6 a.m. or you could be there at noon. There was always UFC people running around doing something. I don't think they sleep. And those are the kind of people that the UFC attracts. Those are the kind of people that Dana White and Hunter Campbell hire to run their organization, to be in the day in and day out of their organization. But not to throw shade at any other organization, but yet things just feel much bigger. And there's also the intrinsic knowledge, knowing that you're at the highest level, you're fighting against the biggest competition, you're fighting under the biggest banner, with the most amount of eyeballs, with the biggest platform. So with that, it wells up something inside you to compete even harder, to train even harder, because you now have an even bigger opportunity and a bigger calling on your life. And I think that was something that I was missing over the last couple of years, even signing a new contract with Bellator 4 years ago and signing a new contract with them 2 years ago. I believed that I was the best lightweight in the world, yet it didn't seem like the door was wide open to go to the UFC. And Bellator was offering me a great opportunity to stay with them. And I made the business decision that I ultimately made until this time. And then when I had that phone call with Dana White and said, I did not sign with you years ago over the last couple of years, not because I didn't want to, not because I didn't want to be in the UFC. It just never worked out that way. And truthfully, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, I don't believe I would have been the man and the fighter and the competitor and the superstar that you deserve to have fighting under your banner. I told him that. He hung up on me, called Hunter Campbell. 5 minutes later, we got an offer. And here we are.
Yeah, Dana likes that kind of stuff. I've known Dana many, many years, and I know that's the kind of thing he likes. So when he heard that, I'm sure he said, "Get this guy signed."
Well, it's true. I mean, it's true, man. It's how I truly feel. It's not, and everybody has their different experiences, and I have my career the way I've done it, and now I have this next chapter of my career inside the UFC. But I am very equally yoked with Dana and Hunter Campbell and how the UFC does things, and I feel like my best performances are still out ahead of me because of it.
So you've done just about everything there is to do in this sport except win a UFC championship. So you get the opportunity on Saturday at UFC 262. If you're holding that belt, will it be able to top the excitement? Because that joy that was in your face after you beat Dan Hooker, I think the long journey to get you to the UFC. I've seen guys cry after their UFC debut and everything, but I don't know that I've ever seen anybody that was as happy as you were to win that fight. Do you think winning the championship can even top that? Because that's a moment you're going to have forever.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that's just the way it's going to be from here on out. I think that UFC 257 opportunity as the co-main event on a Conor versus Poirier card that you knew was going to do north of 1.5 million buys. You knew it was a huge opportunity. Man, I was in the back crying, happy tears. I really was. I was getting my hands wrapped. I watched Rob Monroe, who I'm friends with. He was wrapping my hands, and I looked down on my hands and I saw him, and everything just seemed so familiar because it was right exactly where I needed to be, as if I had seen it in a dream, in visions before this, knowing that eventually I was going to get to this point. And my eyes were welling up with tears. I was listening to my music and I just felt untouchable. Like in the humblest way, I just felt untouchable. I felt like if I could have walked in the cage and fought Francis Ngannou that night. And might have been able to get the better of him. You know, at least in my mind, that's the way I think about that. But don't tell him, because
For your own safety, we'll say let's skip on that idea.
Yeah, exactly. You know, but it was just this feeling, and then the walkout and the smile on my face. I go back and watch it, because thank God we have the internet and I can watch it over and over and over again. And I just want to put myself back in that moment. And now here I am 8 days from now, I get to do it again. And I truly am living a dream that I've had in my heart since I was 22 years old. And I feel like all of the preparation is now meeting the huge opportunity that I have at the right time, under the right set of circumstances. And I think winning that UFC title, when Dana puts it around my waist and I look down for that first time, man, it's going to be pretty surreal. It's going to solidify me as the #1 guy in the world. And it's going to prove to every young man and every woman out there, every small guy from a small town who was taught to do small things, that if you hitch your dreams and goals and hopes to a shooting star, and you never give up, and you continue to move forward with reckless abandon, with complete disregard to your setbacks and the future opposition, that great things can be accomplished because you were created for great things. And my career has been a blueprint for that. And May 15th is going to be a beautiful night, and I can't wait to go win that UFC title.
So I'm going to give this guy, a C on my early pop quiz I gave, but we're going to give an A+ for that answer and for this interview.
Thank you.
And certainly for that performance against Dan Hooker. Mike Chandler, best of luck to you at UFC 262 against Charles Oliveira. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Kevin. I appreciate you, man. I'll see you.